The U.S. is one step closer to a government shutdown after Senate Republicans blocked the funding bill late Monday night. The sticking point is over the inclusion of the debt ceiling in the bill. Republicans say they will not support any measure to raise the debt ceiling over concerns Democrats will pursue trillions in extra spending and other policy changes. If lawmakers don't reach an agreement, the federal government will close at 12:01 a.m. on Friday. A government shutdown could have a direct impact on Americans and hundreds of thousands of federal employees. For more on this, I want to bring in CBS Money Watch reporter Amy Peakey. Hi, Amy. Welcome. So lawmakers have until end of day Thursday to approve legislation to fund the government. What direct impact will this have on Americans if the government shuts down?
Yeah, that's right, Tanya. So what will happen is that all non-essential services done by the federal government will stop. And, what that means is that each federal agency will determine what it considers essential and what's not essential. For most people, the way you're going to feel it is like if you want to go to a national park, it's likely they're going to be shut down if there is a shutdown on Friday. If you need help from the government, if you need to call somebody at the government, like say the IRS, to ask a question, chances are you're not going to be able to get help. If you need to get a permit from the federal government, likewise, is probably not considered an essential function, and that also will be shut down. There also could be some implications for home buyers. In the 2013 shutdown, the IRS stopped verifying income and Social Security numbers, and that led to a delay of 1.2 million mortgages. Eventually they caught up and people got their mortgages completed. But, people are buying homes right now. We know the real estate market is very hot. So that could throw a wrench into some people's plans and delay closings of mortgages and other loans.
So, Amy, as of April, 1 in 8 Americans are on food stamps. If the government shuts down, would that also delay the processing of food stamps? And what other much needed services would be affected, the kind that people rely on, on a daily or weekly basis?
Right. That's a really good question. So interestingly, there are some programs that are mandatory. One of them is food stamps. And so the funding for the food stamp program will not be impacted. There is a little twist, though, in that the delivery of the food stamps could be impacted if the shutdown lasts more than 30 days. In the shutdown from 2018 to 2019, that was avoided by the Agriculture Department prepaying or paying the benefits early. So they avoided that delay of getting those benefits out. Again, that shutdown, though, in 2018, 2019 was a record long shutdown. It was 35 days. Most shutdowns don't run that long. So there's probably a low risk that that could happen to food stamp recipients. But it's also important to understand that there are many mandatory programs that will not be impacted. For instance, Social Security. Social Security checks will continue to go out. Medicare and Medicaid are also will be continued because those are mandatory programs. So many of the essential services that Americans rely on will go on without any issues. The problem could come though if people are applying for benefits or if they're trying to get some information or help and some assistance with those programs, that could be impacted. So that's something to be aware of.
So, Amy, as you just mentioned, there was that partial government shutdown in 2018 that lasted an epic 35 days. That shutdown was costly. I wonder if the government does shut down again and it lasts anywhere near that amount of time, what sort of impact could it have on a nation still in the midst of a pandemic?
Know that from that record-long shutdown 2018 to 2019, the immediate cost was about, I think, $11 billion. Some of that was recouped because people go back to work, they get back pay, but there was a loss of $3 billion in GDP due to that. So some of it, was a hit. And the other thing you have to understand is that workers who are furloughed will get their back pay, but they're essentially being paid not to work. And so that is also a hit to some extent to productivity and to the essential functions or the functions of the federal government. So at this point, it's hard to know just because we don't know, first of all, will it happen? And then secondly, how long will happen? But every day that it goes on does add to the costs to taxpayers and, the lives of citizens.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Amy Peakey, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Tanya.
All right, Shalom. I'd like to start off by saying Kah Halayim La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Harikakudash Ma'amaf. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone, my elder Herawan as well. Salutation to the Akim that are pushing his truth and sincerity and truth. And peace and blessing to the men, women, and children that believe in the name of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. All right, this is Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 1. It says, Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them, while the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders shall cease because they are few, and those that look out the windows be darkened. All right, so I brought that out because, um, you know, dealing with this whole government shutdown and the keepers of the house trembling. That's what this is all about. Um, Things happening like with this, they were explaining how it wouldn't affect the people directly, but in ways it can directly affect the people. It's going to direct the product, I mean, the dollar, which is the product of America, because the GDP could start losing. They could start losing GDP with this government shutdown. And they can't afford to lose that, especially with how much debt that America's already in. And they're talking about raising the debt ceiling so they could spend more money. All right. So we're in the middle of a economy a collapse and collapsing of a dollar, and they're trying to spend more and more and more and more and more and more and more money, man. They're trying to spend more and more and more money. It's gonna trickle down and affect the people, but a lot of people aren't paying attention to things like this because they don't see how it directly affects them, especially the individuals that don't work for the government. They feel like, oh, it's not gonna affect us. It's gonna affect you in the long run, you know. So I'm gonna read this article a little bit going into this whole government shutdown. And remember the one in 2018 to 2019, the 35-day-old shutdown, um, where you had Jake getting all over, oh, Trump, please, please, please start the government back up, please, and all that mess was going on. All right, but hey, it is what it is, man. Like the elder was doing a lesson like last week, dealing with a China's economy being tested, and next the economy of America is going to be tested, and America's not going to be able to survive. All right, America's already trillions and trillions of dollars in debt, and they're trying to get the Congress to pass a bill for them to spend even more money, which is going to put them even further in debt, further behind the eight ball. All right, it says how you could feel the impact of the United States government shutdown, of a United States government shutdown. All right, so they really try to sugarcoat it in that video as if it really won't affect, I'm saying, oh, if you want to go to a state park, it'll be closed. It's more to it than that. All right. All right, it says Americans, including hundreds of thousands of federal employees, could soon feel the impact of a U.S. government shutdown. If lawmakers don't reach an agreement by the end of Thursday, the last day of the fiscal year, the government will officially close at 12:01 a.m. on Friday. Congress is one step closer to a shutdown after Senate Republicans late Monday blocked a bill to fund the government to at the current levels and suspend the debt ceiling. All right, so they have like kind of like a salary cap on teams. All right, so even though these teams make so much money, and to keep teams that have the money to spend from overpowering the teams that don't have as much money and buying all the, what I'm saying, all the high dollar players, they have a salary cap. So, well, the government also has a cap, a debt ceiling that they're allowed and they have to budget according to that debt ceiling. So with this bill that they're trying to pass, they want the Republicans to increase that debt, suspend the debt ceiling, because the budget that they want to spend for surpasses, clearly past the debt ceiling that was created. All right, so they want that debt ceiling to be suspended so they can pass this bill to fund, give out to spend more money. All right, it says it says most Americans would notice the disruption in one way or another. Many national parks would likely shut down, while mortgage and other loan applications could be delayed because of the IRS can't stop verifying could stop verifying income and social security numbers, according to the Committee of the Responsible Federal Budget on a nonprofit group that focuses on fiscal issues. All right, it says government issues that are deemed essential, typically tasks important to safety and national security, such as border protection and air traffic control, would continue despite a shutdown. But the disruption would come at a sensitive time, with many Americans people struggling to regain their footing amid the ongoing pandemic of the economy, grappling with the effects of C-19 Delta variant. All right, so now the economy is already trying to rebound. I did a lesson probably a couple months ago on how they already feel like America cannot rebound like China did from the aftermath of the pandemic. All right. So so what's going to happen if they do a government shutdown in the midst of this? What's going on? All right. And plus, what about those the stimuluses that's supposed to come out every 15th of the month? Will those continue to go out? Will they disperse those payments? And part of this new bill that they're trying to pass, it would bring forth more stimuluses, and that's just the Democratic Party trying to spend more money, and the Republican Party trying to stop them from spending money. It says every shutdown is different. There is a lot of discretion in the agencies about what they can do, what they can continue to do, said Mark Goldwyn, Senior Policy Director at CRFB. Everything that's not essential has to stop, but there are different definitions of essential work. For instance, there are questions whether work on C-19 mandates at the Food and Drug Administration and the Center for Disease Control and Protection would be considered essential. Pfizer on Tuesday said it had sent data to FDA on its chemical trials for the mandate in children 5 to 12 years old. The biggest all right, so now they're trying to hurry up. That's why because of this mandate, that's why they're trying to hurry up and push for the ages of 5 to 12 for dealing with the mandate. All right. The biggest impact may be felt by the hundreds of thousands of federal workers who are likely to be furloughed of its shutdown to be furloughed if a shutdown occurs, experts say. You have 2 million civilian employees that are working hard across the country, Max Stier, president of the nonpartisan think tank Partnership for Public Services, told CBSN. You have told all of them that there may be a shutdown. That means that they have to actually stop working on things like Montana train crash or dealing with the economic calamities caused by the pandemic. The shutdown in Congress comes as lawmakers are also debating a hike in the national borrowing limit or debt ceiling, adding the potential political twists and turns. Here's what you should know if the government shuts down this week. All right. All right. So now it's about them trying to suspend the debt ceiling or limit the borrowing limit. All right. Who are they borrowing from? They're borrowing from the people that make the whole money system. All right. They're borrowing from Europe. That's who they're borrowing from the Federal Reserve. All right. They have a certain budget that they're allowed to borrow for government spending, and they're trying to go outside that budget, so they're trying to grant permission to borrow more money. All right, that's the only thing that's on their mind: spend, spend, spend. And there's a story that Zaquan likes to say about an individual Edomite that was about to fall, and before his pride was so high, he kept building, 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 even though his kingdom was falling. And that's the same thing that America is doing. It says, are we looking at a full or partial shutdown? This would be a full shutdown since Congress has yet to pass any funding bills. The last shutdown from December 22nd, 2018 to January 25th, 2019 was a partial closure since Congress had already enacted 5 of the 12 appropriation bills. That means more federal agencies would likely be affected in a new shutdown. Yeah, because they had already put funding out when they did the partial shutdown last time. All right, but now they haven't passed any bills to put out any funding or put out any money, so everybody's going to be affected from this. It says the partial shutdown in 2018 to 2019 was a record-setting 35 days, which reduced economic growth in the final 3 months of 2018 by $3 billion, and they can't afford as much debt America's in. They can't afford to lose anything on the GDP. It says the Congress Budget Office is estimated. All right, which essential services could continue. Each federal agency would have its own shutdown plan, which is coordinated by the Office of Management and Budget. Those efforts would determine which government agencies would stop until the political impasse between the Democrats and Republicans is resolved and funding is renewed. But all essential services would continue. Here are some of the services that would have been maintained in prior shutdowns, according to the CRFB: border protection, in-hospital medical care, air traffic control, law enforcement, and power grid maintenance. It says, all right, so this is talking about the furlough of many government workers, all right, and the Social Security. So I'll put the link to this in the description box, all right. So if anybody wants to go further and read the whole article and maybe even do a lesson on it. But yeah, they were talking about food stamps, maybe the disbursements getting delayed. And also if you're applying new applicants for benefits would be delayed during the shutdown. All right. So that means women that are pregnant, they have to wait. I think they have to wait till their baby is born to sign up for WIC, to be eligible for WIC. And if a child is born during the shutdown and they haven't produced any more funding, that could potentially affect women that are pregnant and that are needing that assistance. All right. So any new applicants for SNAP benefits, and it said 1 out of 8 Americans are on these benefits. So you know, as time goes on, we're going to see. So anybody that doesn't have any types of subsidy right now, or SNAP benefits, or any type of benefits coming from the government, if there's a shutdown when they do qualify to apply, there's going to be a delay on that. All right. There's so many things to pay attention to and look for, but the main thing is the loss of GDP with this government shutdown. That's the main focus right here. Focus on the loss of GDP. How much GDP um, is going to be lost with this shutdown? How long is this shutdown going to be? Okay, because that's the main focus. Because Laquan was doing a lesson about that, dealing with uh, dealing with lack of GDP from the American economy. Thus, the American economy is not going to be the United States economy is not going to be able to survive or rebound from the test that it's going to have to take. The same test that China is going through. All right, and rebounding off of. All right. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying and served its purpose. With that, I'd like to say, Ka Halayim La Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Harakak Wadash Ma'amah. Double honors to the elder apostles, the great millstone, and my elder Helawan as well. Salutations to the Akim that are pushing the truth and sincerity and truth, and peace and blessings to the men, women, and children that believe in the name of Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. Shalom.